Hey everyone, Matt here from LimaCharlie. Really looking forward to today's presentation or today's webcast or today's amazing review here of a brand new LimaCharlie extension. I'm joined by Paolo over at Priam Cyber. Paolo, what's going on, man?
Very good. Yeah, very nice to see you today.
Likewise. Paolo, you got that, I'm guessing it's a virtual background, but it's got a background that makes me wish I was there because I want to work in a place like that right now.
Me too.
I really do. It would be nice to get a little bit of seclusion and focused work time, right? But no,
Exactly.
everyone, this is good to be here. It's great to have you. So today we're going to be kind of not necessarily debuting because it's already available in the marketplace, but we're going to be spending a little bit of focus time on a brand new extension that is now available in the LimaCharlie platform. And this is the AVA or AVA, Paolo?
We like to call it AVA.
AVA. All right.
Yes.
This is the AVA service, which is available in there. Paolo, I kind of want to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about what it is before we kind of jump into, seeing it and whatnot. But what is AVA like? What was it made or created for?
Yeah. So I'm basically a data scientist. I used to work for in cybersecurity for more than 10 years. I think more than that, but in professional capacity, I've seen a lot of work done in incident response, and there are a lot of inefficiencies within this industry. And the idea was essentially to provide a framework to automate and also guide people in their daily operations. There's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, but our approach is not to remove the person from the equation, but use those tools to enable a more creative environment. So free those people from their daily boring jobs. So essentially, so that's the kind of idea. And the product itself stands for Advanced Virtual Analyst. But the idea is to essentially have a virtual bot that enables you to be more productive when you run incident response operations. So that's the entire idea.
I like that. So just a quick FYI for everyone here. This is first off, a really great example of something that can be built on top of or utilizing telemetry out of LimaCharlie. So that's kind of takeaway one. Takeaway number two, Paolo, I think you've hit a really good sweet spot here because there's a lot of folks who I know use LimaCharlie from a kind of incident response perspective and whatnot, but they're always reaching out and asking us about case management capabilities or asset management and things like that. They're looking for a way to kind of, hey, I want to get a better handle on stuff, or they want to know, do you have something available that I can utilize? And I'm super happy to say that now we do, right? We've got this AVA service available. But the other really nice part about it is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe you guys also follow a lot of the retention and multi-tenancy concepts that we have in place as well. Is that right?
Correct. That's correct. Yeah, we want people, especially if you're an MSP or MSP-like team, we want them to be able to work on one, from one location. So I mean, one virtual location, one web interface, so that you don't have to switch between products. And the reality is that you might have multiple products, not just LimaCharlie EDR, but you might have some CM solutions, some log forwarding from other products, and the idea is to centralize all your work and processes in one location. So you have retention, you have knowledge, you can retain your knowledge when people are joining your SOC or you're leaving your SOC. Everything is there, and it's not tied into a particular product. So if you change your CM or you change your EDR, hopefully you will never change LimaCharlie because I think it's great. But but you know what I mean? If you have, every time you change your products, you lose part of that knowledge. But within our approach, it basically stays within your company, right? So when you change products, it's still there.
Absolutely. That's a huge benefit too for a lot of folks out there as well, is the ability to just kind of keep all that centralized there. Well, for anyone curious, it is available over in our add-ons section in the add-ons marketplace over in LimaCharlie. But Paolo, I think you're going to take us on a little bit of a guided tour. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, I can do
Awesome.
that. I can share my screen and let's see.
Let's go for it.
Okay, can you see my screen?
I can.
That's
I can
our
see it, and I
company.
think it's set up the right way as well. You're good to go. So I'll let you take it
Perfect,
away
yeah.
and kind of go through here. I once you get into it, I'm definitely going to have some questions and stuff for you, but I'll let you kind of start to walk through it.
Perfect, yeah. So this is our website. If users was to go and take a look, this some information about what the philosophy and what we do. But if you log in into your LimaCharlie account, you go to marketplace, and you should see us as a probably step back, but I think it's alphabetical order if I'm not mistaken. So we are the second one, and yeah, all the contacts are here. Because of the complexity that is involved with this service, which essentially create an entire deployment for each customer. You can just subscribe because we are creating a full instance in AWS. We need to connect the to your feed to your outputs. So what you have to do first, you have to go to this form here. There is a link. There is an explanation. So if you click on this one, it will take you to register and your account. So once you have done that and we approve you, you have a free trial for 30 days, which we can extend if you want. We are not that strict for now. But once this is approved, you will receive an email, and the email will take you to your own dashboard. So when I click on that email, so we have an example here with Matt. Let me zoom out a little bit. So it will look like this, right? Let me zoom out. So this will be your subdomain. So if you have a company called Contoso, we use subdomains to register your account. So you will have your own dashboard, your own instance on AWS. If you want to choose a specific region, you can also ask us to be located, let's say, in US East or West. So you have total control where this is going to be deployed. We will give you like an automated administrator account. So you will basically be the first user on that platform. And essentially what you do is you log in. Okay. And this is the kind of the dashboard is the first sort of panel you're going to see. And it gives you like a very simple snapshot of your situation. So you have one alert group, you have 2 total assets so far in this tenancy. You have 1 tenant. So let's that match your LimaCharlie organization, and you have 3 people, so 3 users in your SOC team. There's some stats, how many events you received in that week, what's the severity? There's just low, and some tags. How many cases, how many tasks, and how many alerts. This is one. So let me explain first how do we did this. So Matt registered a machine, right? A Linux machine with a LimaCharlie agent. We created this dashboard, but there is essentially one machine, and Matt launched like a test tool to kind of trigger some alerts. So because it's a demo, so it's kind of restricted to that. And once you register, like anytime, like if you register with your account, we will automatically load your organizations. So if you go to your marketplace, you have to subscribe each sub-org. So in this case, I have 1, of course. So it's quite simple, but each time you subscribe an organization, it will automatically appear on this drop down, so you can switch between them.
Yeah, I think this is so a quick note for folks here who are familiar with LimaCharlie but are just watching this and are kind of like, whoa, this looks pretty awesome. Paolo, one of the things that I appreciate you guys did the most is you carried a lot of the LimaCharlie concepts over into AVA as well. So a quick note for everyone there. You don't have to learn 2 platforms or get familiar with 2 sets of data for this, right? It's a plug and play, but then it's a plug and go as well, because you have the ability, like your organization maps over and it stays the same. Your data retention maps over and stays the same, like all the things you've got in there. And then to offer folks some color on the organization here as well, this is a kind of a lab environment that I've got set up. And in that lab environment, as Paolo mentioned, I've got some Linux systems that are in there and are just kind of doing some things in the background, if you will, right?
Correct.
So that's what we're going to be looking through and seeing in case anyone's curious. But I will offer the caveat out there. AVA, and Paolo, you correct me if I'm wrong, AVA works on top of what you've got in LimaCharlie. So
yes,
just because I'm using Linux does not mean it's a Linux tool, right? It's just the platform that we've got set up there. But if you've got an environment with, Windows, Linux, Mac, all across the board and that kind of stuff, it's going to be able to recognize all of it because it works off of the data that's inside of LimaCharlie.
Correct. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, correct.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so I'll go quickly through the some of the main features. So as I mentioned, you have your orgs here, which you can go on the left menu, so you can go to organizations. There is one, and obviously, as I mentioned, so we are not just a LimaCharlie plugin. So if you have any other customers, any other solutions, you're able to create, a new one. So it's totally flexible in that sense. You can add users to that, notes, and everything is marked down. So you can add pictures and any information you want, for an organization. As I mentioned, this was auto-generated. Obviously, we don't know how many employees do you have or the revenue, because that comes, that's something you will have to fill. But the placeholder will be there. So anytime we see a new organization, it will be appearing there. Then we have the concept of users. So you will get your initial user account that will be there. But what you can do is you can also add additional users that can be outside LimaCharlie. So maybe it's you have a different team, you have different regions, so you can do that. So it's very simple. You basically create a user account, you add it to a specific organization. The user groups, which maps to the kind of role that each member is in your SOC team doing. So from malware analysis, threat hunting, and threat intelligence. You can set up a theme. So for now, we have dark, which is the current theme, but we're also going to do a light theme. So I think LimaCharlie is mostly light, but some people like one or the other one, which is totally fine. We also have multi-language support for now, 3 languages, but we can do more. So we just need a dictionary to translate these menus, so you can actually support multiple languages as well. So this is essentially your user panel. You can organize users in groups. So like if you have a large team of operators, you can assign them to different roles for the same organization. And the idea is that, for instance, in the future, you will be able to create specific task allocations. For example, if you see a LimaCharlie event that is about a suspicious network connection, you might want to link that automatically to a network analyst if it is available. If it's instead, let's say, a suspicious process, maybe like you will send that to a malware analyst. So the role is a way to allocate based on the incoming alerts. So for now we have predefined 9, but you can add more, so you can modify and you can create your own groups.
Again, I'm in the same boat here, where there's a lot of key concepts that are carried over that make it really easy for folks out there. So if I'm running a SOC or an IR team or whatever it might be, and I've got multiple folks on there, of course I want their capabilities to be unique and distinct. The visibility, the things they can do, what they can, accept, what they can, and stuff like that. And I love the way that it's kind of broken out to where you have these very specific roles. And I would highly encourage folks out there as well, if you're going through and using AVA as kind of like a case management / IR management / asset management, all the things tool, make sure you utilize these roles efficiently, because what they're going to do is very similar to the way we have ACL set up in LimaCharlie. They're going to give you the ability to act as like a role, from a role perspective, as you're giving, as you're assigning what to do for folks and things like that. So long story short, you know, when alerts come in, you can delegate things to groups or put different groups in charge, and you can change permissions at a very, very easy push of a button if need to. And I love that this carried over, because again, you know, Paolo, you know as well as I do, when we build these things, we want folks to be able to get up and running as fast as they possibly can. It should not be a heavy lift for them to get started. And I think this is another great way to streamline that for them.
Yeah, totally right. And I also like the LimaCharlie approach as well.
Nice.
Assets, this is, I guess, it depends on your environment, but what you can do is, let's say you have a database where you, you track your most crucial assets, but maybe you want to prioritize them. You can actually, there's an import function based on the JSON format, so you can load your assets. And we use this kind of, it's a kind of an international standard about, for incident response, where there are some specific fields that you can use to categorize your asset, and it basically makes your life easier during investigation, because if you know that it's on premise, it's on the cloud, who is the manager, it will be easier to figure out what to do essentially during investigation, and you can see how many cases are associated to that asset. So that's kind of a way to make your life easier essentially when you look at from an alert perspective. And yes, you can create these assets also manually if you want to do that. But you can also create them as you're doing an investigation. You can essentially add a new asset because maybe you don't have time, and like the first few days you're going to receive a lot of alerts. You can just add those assets from the alert. So it's kind of easier to do it that way. So we can go now, I guess, to the most important aspect is what we call alert groups. In this case, of course, it's very, very simple because there's only one machine, because we are doing this test. Obviously, there would be multiple ones, which you can filter. So you have all sorts of filters with different severities. But the idea is the machine learning in this part of the product is trying to reduce redundancy and combine alerts that are related into each other in a way that you don't want to have two analysts looking at the same event, right? So the idea is to try to separate all these events into stories or groups, so that you have less chance of people working on the same story, right? Because then that's where you lose efficiency. Like there are a lot of things I learned where people they start an investigation for different points, and then they realize it was the same malware, right? Because like it was maybe a different user, the same user on a different machine that was logging and downloading content. So there are so many ways you can, that events are related that it's very hard to for a person to see, right? So we automate that process. So if you look at this is a very simple group, of course. Essentially, we grouped by the host, the machine that was the test machine. We can click on this one, and you get some summaries. Obviously, we know the source was LC, which is LimaCharlie. We have to extract those tags from the detection. So like you have the MITRE attack tags, and that one that comes from LimaCharlie. So we know it's a workstation, Linux with a Debian operating system. We give you a quick summary of the detections that were found on that machine. So you can see that was a root user doing some commands, which produces quite a lot of activity, like in terms of counts. You can actually see all the activity related to this group. Like, if I go here and I change one of these tags, I want to be notified if somebody added a new tag, like false positive, for example. You can then go into the observable which is a table based on the sticks format. A lot of people are familiar, but if you are not, you don't have to be an expert immediately. So you can go into the kind of graphical representation, and you have nodes with different colors, meaning different entities. So, for example, in this case, we know that this is your organization ID in LimaCharlie, which you probably recognize by the format. This ID created a sighting. This company created a sighting called System Network Connection Discovery, which is a detection. You can explore here. There was also another detection called Local System Account Discovery, and I think there was another one you did, which is Local Group Discoveries. These are basically your detections from LimaCharlie. But what we do then, we build this knowledge graph where we correlate, we link together these entities. So, for example, we know that the command linked to that one was this. So the process that was responsible within this detection was the user bin group file, which was linked to this account, which we know it was a root account, so nothing sophisticated. But it allows you to link what you see in the alert in a graphical manner, so that you see which company was executing that detection on which machine, what was the IP address, how many times was he executed within a time period, and it's a kind of an exploration tool to figure out how things are connected to each other. You can also go into
I think this is actually, like, sorry, not to interrupt, but I got to jump in. I think this is one of the coolest features here. So first off, it's one thing to say that a lot of folks are kind of like visual learners and things like that, but to kind of see how a bunch of different things that we've executed or things that we've run in this test environment, how they've kind of materialized into this. Everyone, I mean, this is pure investigation, right? This is how we go and we link together different things and what users doing what processes are they launching, what are our detections telling me, and things like that. And the more detections you have, and Paolo, tell me if I'm wrong here, the more detections you have, the more not complexity, but the better defined this graph becomes, right? Because then you start to link things together, correct?
Yes, yeah. The graph becomes less sparse, and you start to see these patterns, these clusters of activity, where you can basically then decide who should look into into each group of activity. So that's the idea.
Absolutely. And I love this setup because, and even just here, right? I mean, this is not the full capability of AVA either, but even just the way to see, hey, here's how some of these things link together. For those of you out there who are in SOC analyst roles or security analyst roles, you never know how sometimes you can look at all this information in text, right?
Correct.
And it's all right there. But then you see it in a graph and it just, oh, that's okay. Now I get it. Now I see it. And it's a really great tool for junior analysts as well, because it gives them an easier way to see and visualize what's happening and everything like that. So just absolutely awesome approach. And sorry, I want to keep going through more, but I love seeing this because it helps out.
And for now, it's not as complex as Maltego. I don't know many people use Maltego in this.
Yeah, when everyone sees a link analysis graph, the first thing they think of is Maltego, right?
So we are not as feature rich for now, but within the future versions, you will be able to explore, expand, and add threat intelligence, etc. So, but I was a big user of Maltego as well, so I kind of like the way they've done certain things, and we definitely want to kind of follow that into our product. But I guess the main difference with Maltego is that we are fully sticks compliant, so the entire database and let's say the taxonomy is all sticks. So everything we do in the ingestion phase is to transform into the sticks object standard. So any product you will plug into AVA would be converted to this common language, which brings this kind of normalization and understanding, regardless of your source, right? So every vendor, they have their own naming convention, their own standards or format, and we just basically convert everything into this database. One thing you can do, I mean, as I mentioned, this is it's kind of simple for now, but you can actually filter, as you filter your table for specific fields, the graph will be also like filtered automatically. So there's kind of a simple filtering function for now that you can use. If the graph is too big, you can you can sort of try to reduce that. Yeah, so that's for the graph. What you can do then, let's say you have seen this alert group, and sometimes you think, well, maybe it's a false positive, so I want to just ignore it. So what you can do, you can say, well, I don't want to receive any more notifications, or I just want to hide it, right? So you can hide that and say, I don't want to see that anymore, because like that group is always false positive. So you can do that, or stop being notified. Maybe you still want to see it in this list, but you don't want to get these alerts on the top. So that's kind of one of the kind of nice features we have. What you can do is to then say, okay, this looks interesting. I want to create a case. So you go into this dashboard, and well, I think we already have one, but another test case. Let's call it like that. You can decide which asset was involved, if it's that in your list already. So we pre-fill that one. Some sort of severity and priority score, which you can assign. Your TLP and PAP, and your sort of description here. So I'm going to do this, and okay, there's only one alert group in this case. So let's save it. And so now we have two of them. I will probably switch to the old one, so it will be easier to explain rather than creating everything from scratch. But I think this was the one that we did exactly on the same alert group. It takes some time to load because there's kind of a lot of information.
Yep.
So you start with, essentially, it's sort of pre-filled with the basic description, TLP, PAP, status, tags, etc. from the alert groups. You have some sort of quick action. So if you say, oh, this was a true positive, like I can just change that immediately. Your status, so you want to say, oh, this is new, this is open, in progress, archived, like a very, very basic machine flow. You can create a task, which we already have one here. We can do that. And then you have, like, on the left side, you have notes, which are your case notes. So you can, as you do your investigation, you can type everything in this Markdown language. So you can, you can type Markdown here, and that would be saved. So everything is memorized. Documents, I think we might use a better words, is like artifacts. So anything you have collected from that machine. It can be like a file, right? So like anything that you have from an investigation, you can save it there. In the next version, we want to also enable more direct integration with LimaCharlie. So if you are collecting payloads or logs from other sources, this will be a drop down and say, I want to import my my log, my pickup that was triggered by LimaCharlie agent. I don't know if, Matt, you have any comments on that functionality, like from LimaCharlie?
No, I got to say that this is yet another area, I think, where you can just add more. I don't know. I'm a big fan of having context when it comes to IR and case analysis and alert analysis and stuff. So one of the things, Paolo, that I always resort to is, how can I make something easier for my team to use, or security analysts to use? And I think that this is another example where you can upload something from a context perspective. And I mean, let's say someone is just taking notes in a text file as they're going through, or copying and pasting things, hey, here's this, check out that. And then they go on vacation, right?
Yes.
This is a really easy way for them to, like, just share that or push it up there, or critical things. Or remember, we talked earlier about those different rules that we saw, right? Maybe you come across a suspicious file or a piece of malware or something like that. This is a great, safe place to share them back and forth. Now, obviously, I'm going to like zip it up, throw a password on it and stuff like that. But this becomes another really great place to be able to share documents intra-case and keep them all in one spot. I'm a huge fan of kind of centralizing all of that knowledge. So to be able to do it here is just fantastic.
Yeah. And our plan is to enable also external tools. So if you are a big fan of and NTLK, I forgot these forensic tools that enable you to extract information from a a pickup dump or a file storage image. Like, the idea is then you will be able to run those tools and extract IOCs or extract threat intelligence. So that's obviously the possibilities are quite interesting in that sense.
Well, I think Paolo, that allows you to go even further in kind of building out the automation of this, right? Which is, I will, if I upload a PCAP, do this or that. If I upload an EXE, do that or this. And it really allows you to kind of expand out. And then as a team, right? And here's something I would encourage, like, your users or LimaCharlie users to get familiar with or to think about is, what types of automated steps do I want to have if I do a thing? So if I upload a PCAP, what do I want automatically done to that PCAP? And then find a way to build it out,
Exactly. Okay, moving on, we have assets. As I mentioned before, you can add something that, if it was there already, if it wasn't, you can do that. Actors, this is another taxonomy, so you can actually classify like the persona that was doing something unusual or suspicious or malicious into your network. And once again, this is based on the Varys taxonomy, which if you have time, I suggest not you, but I mean the community to check it out. I don't think many people are familiar, but we basically use standards to codify all this information, so that if you want to do an export from our platform, everything will be codified in sticks or berries, so that you can also, like, if you don't want to stay with us anymore, you have a fully compliant dump essentially of all your content. So anyway, so we follow that kind of schema. So like you will probably find it familiar if you have done that before. Actions. This is also based on the what the actor did on your network. So what was the target? Was the intention, etc., etc. So you have like a standard set of options that you can follow. Indicators. Once again, if you're familiar with like sticks, you have to learn the syntax. So if you have seen a specific pattern of observables, you can codify it, and we learn from that, so we can find similar cases in the future. This is quite simple. Unfortunately, it's you need to know how to write it, right? So like a test, but in the future we want to have something more intuitive, maybe with a UI where you can actually compose your sticks pattern rather than writing a string, which requires some knowledge. But at least the functionality is there for now. And then the impact, which sometimes it's not like something that people necessarily associate with SOC operations, but it's very important to measure like the impact of an incident. So like how much money what was the impact of this incident on the business operations? Like how much money did I lose, or was it something I can quantify? At the end of the day, if you can demonstrate, how much, in terms of financial terms, how much damage you have prevented, or unfortunately you have monitored, it will be more visible to your manager and to your customer in terms of revenue and return on investment. Like you can say, hey, I've had 10 cases this month, and this is how much I prevented, how much impact I avoided by stopping that in time. So it's a way to track your basically performance and impact as a team. So this is kind of the detail of that case. What you can do is, I mentioned before, you can create tasks. So you can say, I want to assign a specific task to a person in my team within that organization. So you can say, so that's the case number. For example, I don't know, collect suspicious file, from machine. Okay, and you can select the priority, the assignee. I think that's smart again. When do you want that done? Dependency. If you have a dependency, you can put a dependency and tags. Oh, okay. I forgot my description. Yeah, we are too strict on these things. But
That's okay. Sometimes these fields are good to have,
yeah, maybe we don't make them optional. But yeah, so essentially you can see all your tasks that you have, linked to people. Some of them they have dependencies, so maybe Matt needs to wait on Ross to access that machine, etc., etc. Uh, you can also see them here. So like you can see, obviously depends on your role. You can see how many tasks were assigned, and here you will see which tasks you have to perform because they have been assigned to you. And obviously, as you close them, you can we report them in the dashboard. And at the end of the day, what you want to do is to go to this case and essentially close it to progress with more other investigation. One thing that I mentioned was the ability. So for now, as you can see, in terms of automation, so we don't allow you to call payloads or commands to LimaCharlie. But in the next feature, what you'll be able to do inside a task will be to say, okay, I found a suspicious process, which I then terminated because it was malicious. What we want to do in the next version is to enable you to give these commands from the same interface, which means that the backend will learn from these tasks and description, so that maybe the next time you're doing a similar investigation with a similar detection with a similar case and evidence, we'll be able to tell you, okay, now like this is what we have done before. Like you terminated that process, you kept a copy of your registry keys, and you deleted the run keys for that process. We'll be able to learn that and automate that process, almost like a SOAR, but built in. So you don't have to specify a playbook, but we can learn from that interaction. So this is something that obviously is quite complex. So, but it's something I want to mention because I think will be a game changer for efficiency. Once we give you the ability to also perform operations, it will be great. It would be a great addition to your efficiency.
I mean, this right here is really the next step for anyone who's kind of into this case management side or is looking for a way to say, hey, I already have some insight into what I want that next step to be and stuff like that. And of course, then work to kind of build that out. The other thing that I think, you guys are moving towards allowing for here is for anyone out there who's got like IR playbooks or, certain things that they would recommend doing, you can now transcribe these into AVA and then be able to take action based on those as well.
Correct.
So like the actions capability, everyone is Paolo, you said it right. It's going to be the game changer for what's next, because it is the place where you can say, all right, now I can start to automate some of the approaches that my team does. And now we're about to make life a lot easier for everyone.
Correct. And in terms of there is some also, I also want to show you the some screenshots for our next version. What we do in the background is that you don't see in the UI is that we do a lot of machine learning. So we learn from every time you modify a tag. Essentially, we learn from that interaction. So like if you're calling some, if you say, well, there's a detection that on a Linux machine, which is a workstation, is also giving me is always giving me a false positive. As you do that repetitively, so we learn from this interaction. So next time you will see this machine tag that says possible FP. So we essentially what we do, we try to hide the machine learning so that we don't ask you specifically to do anything for machine learning, but we learn that passively from your actions. So which is also like it's like we don't want to basically force you to do like specific data science tasks, right? Because nobody has time to do that. So it's kind of another feature that it's there, but you don't really see it, right? Like at some point you will see, hey, there's a suggested task or there's a suggested tag for this case, and you don't even know it's coming from the machine learning. I mean, you can see with the color, it's color coded, but it's something maybe we do in another session, because it will just take more time to explain, and I had to load a proper data set with real users. It's something that we can't do in 10 minutes, unfortunately.
I think the thing worth noting here for folks is that, like any learning or AI-based platform, the more data you feed it, the better. The more it learns to know you, the more it learns, it learns kind of more about your environment or your organization and the data that you're sending in and how to help you further and things like that. So one thing I would highly recommend to folks is take advantage of a service or a platform like this, because it's only going to get smarter the more data you give to it and the longer instance you have and whatnot. Hey, Paolo, I'm going to offer a disclaimer for everyone as well. The very first time you connect it and log in, don't expect it needs a moment, right? It needs a moment to learn and get familiar with you. It's not going to be an instant click. Things like asset management, alert recognition, case creation, stuff like that will be there. But the AI side of it is something that's going to take a little bit of time to get there. And that's with any platform, right?
Correct. That's correct. Yes. And what we do as well, which is, I believe, we're probably one of the first platform trying to measure the stress of people is very important. So we have this button that I don't know if people have noticed on the top left, and
tell us more about the stressometer.
The stressometer, which is we might change it, but I think it's kind of an interesting name. But what we learned, so we also have a team, a team of psychologists. We have seen how people react to stress, workload, specifically in SOC operations, and the more alert you have, the more volume. Your brain was not designed to alert, to process such amount of information in a, especially in the cybersecurity world. There's nothing to do. What people have, been hunter and gatherers, right, from the Paleolithic era. Like, there's nothing like that, right? Your brain wasn't designed for doing that. So what we do is if you provide feedback about your stress level, so we can actually correlate this feedback with the amount of work and the type of load you have during the day. And what we can do is, obviously everybody's stressed. I understand that, but if we see this change in the stress level, we can actually estimate what makes you stressful. Is it the amount of alerts that you get every day? Probably yes. Maybe you have too many, or is it the kind of work you do? Right? Maybe you are not very familiar with this type of workload or workflow. So it can be many cases. But the idea is to kind of like a little feedback to put the person into the equation, because if you provide us machine learning, it's great if the data is clean. But if you're under stress and you're providing the wrong input to that machine, you're just randomly putting tags or content, it's not going to work well. So it's kind of a balance between human and machine. That's what we are trying to achieve here.
I like that. I got to say that's a huge win for some folks out there, because they just might not be available, or they might not, not everyone catches up with everyone on the team at the same time. And I really like the fact that there's this tiny little nugget in there that just kind of captures or reflects what someone might be going through, what kind of stress level they're at, and whatnot. So, I mean, I'm just going to say personally, as someone who's definitely experienced or witnessed definitely some, mental health things on the side of cybersecurity and incident response and whatnot, huge thanks for putting that in. That's a fantastic little thing to have.
Yeah, it's a beginning, and obviously we can improve, but it's a great metric to have, and you can see how people during the week maybe they're less or more stressful, and figure out how to improve their quality of life.
I like it. No, it's something we all need to be aware of, for sure.
Very important. Yeah.
Awesome. Paolo, we've got looking at the time for our meeting here. I think we've got about 10 minutes or so left.
Yeah.
But by no means am I telling you to hurry up. But I just wanted to reflect on a couple of other things. I think you talked about the case management side of things, the ability to edit cases, add things in and whatnot. We talked about user controls, ACLs, asset management, and things like that. What other kind of key details, if you haven't hit on them yet, what other kind of key things do you think IR teams would get out of a platform like this especially if they're used to maybe like an old way of doing things where they're kind of manually tracking information, or they're using, like very primitive forms. And don't get me wrong, everyone, let me be clear, okay? If you are using any form of case management, like even a text file where you're keeping track of notes, you are a double-digit percentage ahead of a lot of the industry out there. Because a lot of folks do it with like, oh, I think I'll remember that system, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously it doesn't work out. But understanding, if I'm like an MSSP or an MDR or an IR provider, and I've got multiple organizations, multiple tenants, it's not feasible to try and keep track of all those things, right? So what types of tips or tricks do you guys have over there for someone who's like, hey, I've got 5 or 10 different customers that I've got to work through? How does this kind of help them out?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it's the key for efficiencies. Yes, it might take you at the beginning, you have to develop this habit of keeping track of your tasks into this platform. And okay, maybe if you have some previous knowledge from Excel and other systems like ServiceNow, maybe you'll have to copy and paste it. So it could be it's kind of annoying at the beginning, but the cost, the efficiency gains you get over even after 2 weeks are great. I mean, I can't quantify them exactly, so each team is different, but just having the knowledge in one place from multiple customers, multiple system, multiple sensors from a firewall to an EDR solution will give you search functionality, reuse, so you can reuse that knowledge. You can see what people have done instead of going back and asking what happened on that case. So all this history is there, which allows you to be more efficient essentially. So yeah, that's I think that's the key. Like very simple suggestion is, yeah, try to use this platform as much as you can. So the more information you put, the more you will be able to search over time. But also the machine learning will play a role in mining your even like textual information. Like it doesn't have to be codified. Even if you put notes and say, "Oh, I found this very strange file downloaded by a suspicious website," like I don't remember what was that website, but like even if you keep textual knowledge with advances in LLMs and GPT type of things, will enable us to provide you with a better experience and more efficiency. So that's kind of my long answer to that.
I like that. No, there's no answer too long when it comes to like ways to make these things easier and whatnot. So I think I think you hit on like some really important concepts for for folks out there who, in my opinion, probably need this a lot more than they realize. One other thing that you may have touched upon a little bit, but I'm wondering if you can hit on again for us as well, is kind of the reporting aspect of AVA and the different types of reports that can be generated from this.
True. Yes, that's probably something I can show from the other dashboard, but the idea is we don't have this in this version specifically, but the idea is you can essentially, and maybe I can show you some from the next version, but you can actually trigger a schedule report, so that to say I want to know I want to take a snapshot of these metrics every week, and I want to email that to my SOC manager or to my customer. So you can actually see, the percentage of cases open and close, false positive, true positive. So you can keep track of the, the evolution over time of your team. And if you see something suspicious, like, oh, how come this month, this week we had like 100%, twice the alert volume. Maybe there was a change in your CM, right? Somebody turned on some new functionality, and as long as you keep track of that in the platform, we're able to find out why that happened, right? And it seems silly or simple, but when you have a large environment, you can't. I mean, it's impossible to remember who did what. Like, I changed one parameter in my CM. I added 2 new playbooks. I reduced the sensitivity of that tool, and then those small changes can produce a very big change in your performance. So if you don't know where to go back and see the snapshot, it's impossible to figure out, what did you do to make it better or worse most of the time, unfortunately. So that's something that it sounds basic, but I think most people underestimate tracking changes and auditing in SOC. I don't see many people doing that, unfortunately. But this just my experience.
Absolutely. No, I think I got to tell you, I think reporting and reporting output are some of the most not only requested features, but also some of the things that folks really want the most over here. Those getting into LimaCharlie. Now, let me offer some quick clarification for folks. There is, like high-level statistics in a dashboard and things like that available in the LimaCharlie platform. However, for those of you who are looking more for kind of like alert consolidation, or I'm just going to call them pretty graphs here, right? Because that's what a lot of SOC teams are used to seeing, and they're used to those reports being kind of sent out, and they want to kind of quantify and pick apart that data. I'll go a step further and say, if you're an MSSP or an MDR or an IR, you want to provide those metrics to your customers as well. And having all of this in here, Paolo, is a huge, huge takeaway for folks. So it's an awesome feature to have in sight there. So, thank you for putting that in there, because it's one of the things I think that people need the most when it comes to kind of quantifying and bringing this data together. Awesome. Well, we've got a couple of minutes left, Paolo. I want to give you maybe the next few minutes. What final features or final things you want to talk about here?
Well, I just want to show you a preview of our next.
Okay. All right. In that case, then you got 5 minutes then, because this I want to see.
So it's kind of a refresh of the UI. So we have this concept of groups. So you can explore different type of grouping. So you have the classical grouping and the kind of more advanced groups from machine learning. So you can also create your own concept group. So you can say, well, I want to group by user, hash, by a specific severity, etc. So we just make it, let's say, more flexible for that user. You can then, within these clusters, you can click into each one, and it's kind of a better search functionality. So you can actually filter this table, the sticks table I've shown before. Now it's much more simple and intuitive. So we extract the main field. So even if you don't know sticks, we sort of translate it into a more kind of, let's say, easier interpretation. We have buttons to suppress and disable certain ones, but there is also time range cases. Let's see if I can get into this other one. I can't remember which one was interactive. 1 second, let me go back. I have to click on this one. That's the kind of functionality for SOAR, but like in terms of, we improve the timeline. So when you're looking at like the evolution of a cluster over time, you can actually see how the events changed, like across time. So you can automatically highlight the same indicator, like in this case was an IP address, a file hash. You can filter by source. It was from EDR, your CM. You can see like the false positives. Within that group, it just makes it kind of easier to navigate, like when you have a lot of events and looking at the evolution. And last but not least is the AVA score. So we take the original score from your input systems, and we create a combined score with machine learning that takes into account multiple factors like the asset severity, the novelty of that specific alert, and sort of modify the original score to say you should look into this because it's on a critical asset, it's public facing, and it's like quite it's a new attack type. So it's it's a new feature combined with a better UI basically. So yeah, that was kind of a very quick sort of snapshot of what we're doing. And the sticks graph, as I mentioned before, will be better. It's in terms of visualization. So we try to simplify it. So if you only want to see IP addresses, you will only see them. So you can filter the entity you are interested rather than just seeing, the entire thing, which can be a little bit, complex when you start from everything. So yeah, that's kind of a quick snapshot of what is going to be in the next version. So yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. Can't wait to see it. And, just if anyone needed a reason to kind of hold on tight and that kind of stuff, here you go, because there's some awesome features coming out. Well, this has been a really, really great deep dive. Paolo, thank you so much for joining me on this today. And thank you to everyone else who's been joining us as well. I highly recommend, again, get into the LimaCharlie marketplace. It is under services. The name is AVA service. If you click into it, you'll read more descriptions. It's AVA for LimaCharlie, a incident response platform specifically designed to work on top of LimaCharlie's data. So with that said, a huge thanks for being here with me. And for anyone who's got any questions or anything, please feel free to utilize the question and answer capability here. We've also, of course, got presence in our LimaCharlie community Slack. If you'd like to join in on the conversation there, we can check us out there as well. But thanks for being here. And Paolo, thank you for sharing this with me today.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. And we'll see you in the Q&A session, I guess. So we'll be there
Absolutely.
as well. So if people
Awesome.
have any
Good
questions.
stuff. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.